Hi, Steve. Okay, so we just got the word that we're not on until 6:30. I know. Well, I mean, you know, it's initially Heidi was saying that they were supposed to be on a mission, but they had a couple of housekeeping things to do first. So I was just giving you a heads up. So it's more like 7:30. But if you're starving, you can go ahead and start. Do it. Well, there's bread, there's cheeses and stuff. Yeah, and then a nice salad with a piece of salmon and cook. And that was not frosting very well. That's probably not a bad idea. You could do that, and just put it in one of those plastic containers so it doesn't get dry. But those things are pretty wet, so be careful when you cut one end off. Otherwise, you'll have stuff all over the place. Okay. All right. All right. Just want to give you a heads up so you knew. That's all. All right, sweet. Oh yeah. No, these guys are pretty. We're real. Heidi had everything put together, and then I've done a lot of presentations before. So between the two of us, and then these guys are real pro. These guys are real pro. Staff's already here for the most part. And the councilmembers are just showing up now. So we already talked to the mayor, and the mayor is David Tooman. We've known him for years. He's a good guy. So yeah, he's already giving us some good advice. So okay, alrighty. Wish us luck. Okay.
Actually, the process was really good, but then you just told us. It was nice to know the process was
Well, I sort of thought, I knew it would be this way.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So they can do a bond, they can do a letter of credit. Oh, I can't do that. But then for the contract.
Bathroom?
Yeah.
Hello.
You're a music person. You ever heard these guys? Los Marios?
No. Where are they playing?
Grand Sierra.
Oh. That's Friday.
It's Friday, yeah.
Yeah, he called me on the 6th. He said, well, I was at the meeting, so I called him back. Hello.
Hi, Heidi. Hey, how's it going? Okay, how are you doing?
Good, we're doing a presentation about the Donner Project.
Oh, good.
When was that?
Are you just hanging out, or do you have
No.
something between you?
Yeah.
I'm very unhappy with the town right now. They sponsored legislation overriding HOA covenants on ADUs without even telling us. They got an offer. And Heidi?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I know them. Yes.
Perfect.
Thank you.
So, that will be my
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Truckee Redevelopment Successor Agency meeting. We're going to do this first before we do our regular town council meeting. Jen, may we have the roll call, please?
Board Member Commendatory.
Here.
Board Member Klovstad.
Here.
Chair Tierman.
Here.
Board Member Abrams. Here. Vice Chair Pallavi.
Here. And at this point, I would like to ask everyone to please stand and join the board in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we get started with the board meeting of the Redevelopment Successor Agency, we always have an opportunity for public comment for anything that is not on this particular agenda. So if anyone has public comment that's not on the agenda for the board meeting tonight, please step forward. Any public comment? Seeing none, we will close public comment and then move on to item 5, the consent calendar. Let's see, do we have any? We have minutes, I believe. Would any member of the board care to pull anything from the consent calendar? Any member of staff? I'm sorry. Any member of the public? Okay, with that then we will entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I move to approve the consent calendar for the successor agency.
Thank you, Anna.
Second.
Thank you, Jessica. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, consent calendar carries. And at this point, we're going to start with our one and only discussion item for this board meeting, the refinancing of the redevelopment bonds. And I believe, Kim Zurich, you're going to walk us through this.
Thank you. Yes, I am. So thank you for convening the Truckee Redevelopment Successor Agency, and we're here this evening to talk to you about refunding and refinancing bonds that were issued in 2010. So a little bit of history. The Redevelopment Agency, when the agency still existed, issued $12.7 million of bonds. The proceeds totaled $10 million because there was some capitalized interest in reserve funds. We had a 10-year call provision in those bonds, which is allowing us to think about this at this point. The funds were used for multiple streetscape programs, mostly downtown. They had an effective interest rate of close to 5%. It was a little bit of a complicated deal. We issued both taxable and non-taxable financing, and there was a subsidy from the federal government, which was part of during that economic time, trying to spur infrastructure investment. The RDAs were dissolved in 2011, but the tax collection continues for the payment of the debt that had been issued by the agencies. And the amounts that are not collected, the idea was that any monies that had been collected by the agencies that were not needed for the debt service are then passed back to the overlapping agencies. And in your staff report, I gave you a list of what those agencies are. So a refinancing will result in reduced interest costs, and therefore those overlapping agencies, including the town's general fund, will have an increased amount of tax revenue on an annual basis. So we're looking to actually do this transaction sometime in the spring of 2020. We're starting it now in October of 2019 because there is a multiple step process to go through. First, we're asking you all to approve the initial documents that we need, their initial resolution to do this. Then we go to the county redevelopment oversight board, and that meeting has been scheduled for November 7th. And then we will submit the proposed transaction to the California Department of Finance, and they can take as long as they need to, hopefully 60 days or so, to approve that. So you can see our timing getting us to spring. We're anticipating an interest rate of about 2.9%. And our wonderful financial advisor, Marty Johnson, who's in the audience from J&A Consulting, is helping us to estimate about $160,000 a year. That's the conservative estimate. I put 155 in the staff report. It could be more than that, but I'm giving you the lowest number we think we might get. And so that, again, would go out to those overlapping agencies. So that's all the information I have. I'm happy to answer any questions, or Marty can, if there's something I can't answer. And so here's our staff recommendation, which is essentially that you approve Resolution 2019-03, which authorizes us to move forward with this refunding transaction.
Okay, thank you, Kim. At this point, we'll see if there are any questions, clarifying questions from council. All right.
It might just be more for curiosity. Thank you, Kim. Can you just explain a little bit the refund and reissue? So who holds the bonds now? Are these individual people, or are they who bought them? And then with the refund, are we paying them off and then making them re-available? And if so, do we know that they're going to be purchased by people? Is that?
Well, we're working with an underwriter, Piper Jaffray, and so they, yes, they will get purchased
At 2.9%?
Well, that's our estimated interest rate based on today's rates.
Right.
So, and that's the all-in rate with the costs. So do I know who holds the bonds? I don't. They're sold on
on the open market. So anyone could, I could own 10,000
You could.
bonds.
Or it could be a professional investor.
Okay, and they would all get paid off and then
That's
reissued
correct.
at the lower rate?
Yes.
Oh, and they're in, okay. No, that makes perfect sense to me. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Okay, then at this point, we'll open this item up for public comment. If there's any public comment. Seeing none, we will close public comment and then bring this back to not the council, but the board. Sorry. We'll bring it back to the board for either a motion or discussion.
I don't see any reason why not to. It's refinancing. If we're paying, 4+% interest and we're going to pay 2.9% interest, there's no reason why we wouldn't.
It's excellent planning. I've seen the school district do the same thing, and the savings, I know, are conservatively estimated, and look forward to seeing that.
All right. Motion or?
Sure. Do we have an actual motion on this one?
Yes, it's on that.
Resolution, sorry, I got you. I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 2019-03.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right. Motion
Thank you.
carries. Thank you, Kim. And thank you, Marty, for being here. No questions. Okay. With that, we are going to now move on to our regular Truckee Town Council meeting. I think, given that we are all here, we did a roll call with the successor agency meeting. I think we can forego that. We'll forego the Pledge of Allegiance and go right into public comment. And again, this is an opportunity for public comment on anything that is not on the council agenda tonight.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Jennifer Jennings, and I'm a member of the Tahoe Donner HOA Board of Directors. I'm speaking here as an individual. I'm coming to complain about what I see as a major lack of communication and collaboration between the town and the HOAs. I learned via a Moonshine Inc. article on Friday that the town had both drafted and sponsored a bill that overrides HOA covenants with regard to accessory dwelling units. And I happen to believe in accessory dwelling units, and so that's not really my issue, except that we didn't know that the town had any involvement in this legislation, and this legislation was carried by a Southern California legislator out of Burbank. So I thought, well, when I heard of it in late summer, I thought, well, I really think this should be drafted differently. And I would have some comments, but I didn't think I really had any opening to say anything to make it more usable and more effective in promoting additional housing. But since not knowing that the town of Truckee itself was a sponsor, I didn't even make that effort. So I'm really distressed that there wasn't some communication with the local HOAs with regard to something that overrides the covenants. A couple of comments that I had about it was that it's in the intent language that the ADU shall not be used as STRs. I used to work in the legislature, and you always put in the intent language something you didn't mean as strongly as the code provision that will actually be in the code, which says that you can, HOAs can, covenants that ban ADUs are overridden. So I think that if that was really the intent, it should be in the specific code provision, because that won't appear in any of the statutes. You have to do the legislative history to find that. And secondly, and I'm losing my train of thought with regard, we've already heard from people who, it says it's the intent that the ADUs not be STR'd. We've already heard from people who are thinking that they're going to build an ADU, move into the ADU, and STR their main house. So this provision, although it overrides our ban on ADUs, would allow that to happen with regard to them STRing their main home. So anyway, I'm sorry to have to come and make this public comment, but I did consult. We had a board meeting on Saturday. I asked our staff directly whether town officials had told Tahoe Donner professional management staff that they were sponsoring legislation to override our covenants, and they said no. And I've since confirmed that with your staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate your comments. We are actually having another agenda item later on this evening about STRs. Okay, all right. Look over to staff real quickly. If I don't know if anyone wants to comment on that or not. No.
The only comment I have is that we did not draft the legislation. We did work with our lobbyists to find an author who was willing to carry it, and they did all the drafting. We didn't draft any of it. We had a little bit of input when there was some opposition or some potential opposition from other people who were kind of opposed to the legislation, and so we were consulted on a few amendments, but the language itself and how it was structured and where the intent language went is not our product.
Jennifer, we've closed.
Well, that's contrary to the moonshine.
I don't want to have this kind of a discussion here. We can certainly contact our town attorney.
Yeah, if I could weigh in there, I'm responsible for the misquote in Moonshine Inc. So my bad. Okay. I was while driving and getting interviewed by the Moonshine Inc. reporter, I made some comments that weren't exactly precise about it. I was trying to put it in context, so apologize for that. But it is true, I think, that we did not directly consult the HOAs on the particulars of the legislation and moving forward. No question. However, it's also true that over the last, I would say, 4 years plus, there have been multiple interactions and conversations with each of the HOAs, including a concerted research effort we did 2 years ago to try to figure all of this out because we were trying to pursue a more ADU strategy. Both Tony Lashbrook, I've had conversations, Nick also did some research about 2 years ago. So we have had, and then we probably had a dozen meetings on ADUs at the Mountain Housing Council, of which Tahoe Donner staff were a part of at least some of those. So, I mean, I think Ms. Jennings is correct. We did not go to the ADUs or the HOAs and say, how do you want to craft this legislation, or can you help us with it, or whatever. But we certainly have had plenty of conversations that the HOAs in the town have had around the question of ADUs. And we support the notion of ADUs, as it sounds like at least some in Tahoe Donner do as well.
All right, thank you. Any other public comment?
I'm here partially in.
If you could state your name, please.
Oh, Marlis Zusi, and I reside in Tahoe Donner as well. And thankful that Jennifer is kind of protecting our interests in Tahoe Donner, but kind of concerned as well when her and I had a discussion about it, that I'm kind of relying on Tahoe Donner to protect my interests as a homeowner. And so I am very disturbed to see a difference in the town of Truckee and the homeowners association. So it's really got to work together on stuff like this. And also, I do want to reiterate too Jennifer's what she heard, that I mean I've lived here for 27 years full time and raised my kids here, that I'm hearing the same thing. Well, now I'm just going to build myself a little unit and rent out my house and make a ton of money. So I have heard that as well from a lot of other people. So that's of concern to me as well. Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we will close public comment and move on to our presentations this evening. We've got a couple. First one, item 5.1, is a community volunteer recognition. And I am going to go to the podium for that one. So this evening, we have a special community volunteer recognition. Tonight, we're going to honor someone who's been volunteering in our community for many years in a very quiet, very humble, and a very hardworking way. He is someone who always makes sure that our planning commission hearings and our town council meetings appear on the airwaves, whether viewed through live streaming or being watched through our local cable network. So tonight, we'd like to honor and recognize Mr. Tom Ballister. Tom, can you come out, please?
Is this a surprise?
Yes. Okay. I've been hijacked. That's what I feel like. I don't know what to do out here.
All right. Well, I'm going to say a few things, Tom, about you, just to give some background. After graduating from high school back east, Tom joined the Navy and was stationed in Ethiopia in Africa. And after the Navy, he returned to school to pursue education in electrical engineering. And in between, he played bass, guitar, in a rock and roll band on Long Island, New York. And after schooling in electrical engineering, Tom joined Bell Laboratories, developing hardware and software used in computer and phone technology. He has helped to found over 3 startup companies involving software and computer technology, and then moved to Reno in the late 1990s. And in 1998, he moved to Truckee and got involved in another startup opportunity with a business partner who was from Hungary. Tom wrote and designed all the software for a Hungarian bank and was able to work for the most part from home in Truckee, traveling to Hungary several times a year for on-site meetings. And since retiring, Tom, you are retired now, correct?
There's a rumor.
Okay. Still working, but he's retired. He's been volunteering throughout Truckee on many projects that enable him to use his AV knowledge as well as electrical engineering, software writing, and band experience. He does filming for Truckee football, setting up and producing many local musical venues such as Concert in the Park and the Truckee Follies. He's involved with our local radio and TV stations, and he's designing and remodeling the boardrooms for filming at the airport, the PUD, town hall, and the hospital. So for all of this quiet, behind-the-scenes hard work without compensation, it's my pleasure as mayor of the town of Truckee to present Tom with a key to the town of Truckee.
Thank you. Thank you. I really do feel hijacked.
Say a few words.
I'm out of time. Sorry. I don't have, but I will say I'm very surprised, and that's really, I'm grateful. It's not necessary. I do it because I like to, and because people seem to appreciate it. So thank you for this. I do appreciate it. Got to get back to work.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. You're awesome. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for all your work, Tom.
Hopefully, hopefully there was someone in the back room covering while Tom was out here. I think Rory stepped in. So, all right. So with that, we are going to move on to item 5.2, which is a Sierra State Parks presentation. Tonight we have Heidi Doyle, the Executive Director of the State Parks Foundation, as well as Rob Weston. Rob, are you a board member or?
I'm the Vice President of the board.
Okay.
Represent the board and support Heidi.
You'll need to press the mic. Yeah, little red
Sorry
button.
about that.
Okay.
Didn't see the red button. So yeah, my name is Rob Weston. I'm the Vice President of the Board of Directors of the Sierra State Parks Foundation. So I'd like to start the presentation by thanking the Town Council and the Mayor for allowing us to come and make this presentation this evening. And my start on the presentation is really quite simple. I think most folks have seen the Pioneer Monument at Donner Memorial State Park. And I guess my point is that a lot of folks, I don't think, know the total significance of that monument. And that is that that monument is really dedicated to all of the people that essentially founded the state of California. They came right here through Truckee. It's not a monument just to the Donner Party folks, which was an unfortunate situation, but again, to all the folks that made it to the Sutter Fort and the folks that really founded the state of California, right through your town. So with that basic information, I'm going to pass it on to Heidi and let her talk about our project that we're asking for support on. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Town Council. My name's Heidi Doyle. I'm the Executive Director of the Sierra State Parks Foundation. We're the nonprofit partner with 7 California state parks in the Lake Tahoe, Donner area. We believe that our state parks in this region are unique cultural and natural resources that are worth preserving. We fund projects and educational programs that connect people with our rich cultural and natural resources. Because of our work and our advocacy, our parks will continue to be places of inspiration and inspiration and education for generations to come. As partners with state parks, we have supported Donner Memorial State Park here within the realm of the town of Truckee since 1964, when the first visitor center was built. As you know, about 4 years ago, there was a new visitor center that was built that's become a major economic driver to the town of Truckee. Visitation to the visitor center has doubled, and within the last decade, visitation to the state park within the town boundaries has doubled, putting financial strains and resources to our state park partners as that particular budget dwindles. That's where the Sierra State Parks Foundation fills in. So what we do essentially is we provide the funding gaps for this and other state parks. And tonight we want to talk to you about a project that's near and dear to our heart as a board education tool, if you will. It's called the Donner Project. So as we know, there's visitors from around the globe and students from near and far gravitate to hear about the stories and the narration that we talk about at the Visitor Center at Donner Memorial State Park. Since the facility opened in 2016, like I said, visitation to the park has doubled, illustrating a craving for more knowledge for our local history. While the state-of-the-art facility welcomes increased visitation, the aging Pioneer Monument and the worn surrounding landscape are challenged to handle the wear and tear of all that visitation. In addition, the docents and teachers struggle with outdoor presentations as they compete right on the boundaries of the park. As a result, the Sierra State Parks Foundation has taken on a funding initiative, a capital campaign, to solve 3 problems. The first problem is the degradation of the Pioneer Monument. The monument is the 100-year-old monument over the decades is deteriorating. And there was a study done by the state of California 12 years ago, when the end story of that result of that study was to put red tape around it, keep people away because it's about to fall down. And that's just about when the state ran out of money. We were starting to close parks, so it just stood there. We got involved as an organization after the opening of the visitor center. We were very heavily involved with that initial funding and funding also all the accoutrements it needed to get that thing going. But as we saw the use of it, we looked at that monument and said, what can we do now to tackle this major and significant historic landmark for our region? And as Rob said, it's a legacy landmark that really talks about our collective spirit. So we recommissioned a study, and the study told us actually that it's not about to fall apart. It's not a $2.1 million project, but actually the bronze needed some restoration. The base definitely needs some restoration, but the price tag was brought down to $600,000. So with that, we were energized to say, what now? How can we look at this project as a whole to solve the other needs, which are the fact that there's desert-like landscaping. It's the landscaping around the monument is with no vegetation. There's no seats for reflective seating. There's no place to really to tell that our collective story of what this is all about. What does it mean to our region when the visitor center is open or there are no park folks there? The other problem that we realize is that the one I alluded to before. It's noisy there. I don't know if anybody in the room went to our 100-year dedication 2 years ago. And we had a lot of dignitaries there. We had a wonderful presentation by the town of Truckee, and even with the PA system that we had, it was a challenge to hear what was happening. And the sad part were we really had a hard time hearing the elementary kids from Glenshire singing the song "I Love California." It was wonderful to do that. So there's a problem, and so we looked at what can we do to resolve this problem. What the foundation did is we realized after a community study, we brought in community members, we brought in members from state government, we brought in members from the Native Sons of the Golden West, we brought in Norm Sayer from the Donner Summit and said, what should we do? What can we do to make this a more effective and functional space for our visitors in town? And the answer was that we should restore the monument. We should do that reflective, great landscaping around it with benches and interpretive panels. And let's do something really cool. Let's build an amphitheater that can hold up to 100 people, be flexible enough for individual family picnics or for 3 third-grade classrooms. Why 3 third-grade classrooms? Because, as you know, or might not know, local history is part of the third-grade curriculum. And if you have a third grader, they're coming to the park. And we want to enhance that experience to those third graders. So we worked in conjunction with JKA Architecture, a local architecture firm in town, and we created a pavilion that looks like and picks up elements from the Washoe. You know, the Washoe are the native tribe that lived in the area. Because we haven't done a very good job, we being state parks, of really telling that collective story. So we've been working in unison with the Washoe tribe and coming up with a creative concept and design of how we can have an outdoor education pavilion that would be used when there's no snow there. You can do campfire programs, you can do small concerts, all sorts of evening and daytime presentations. And the reason we're going to be able to do that is because it's being designed to mitigate the sound of Highway 80. So there's some special design considerations. Because of that, it's an expensive project. It's approximately a $1.8 million project for this, for basically landscaping. The good news is, and it's really good news, and I'm happy to announce it to the town council, is that the state of California State Parks has allocated $600,000 out of their deferred maintenance budget for 1920 and 2021 to restore the monument. We're able to check that off. So we're going to get the front door painted. And now we need to go ahead and get rest of the house completed. So what we've done is we have collaborated with the Native Sons of the Golden West, the Sierra State Parks Foundation, and we've committed to raising $450,000 from our local community. At this point, we are now at $122,000, which is just lovely. The Native Sons of the Golden West have also committed to $450,000, and they right now are at that $100,000 mark. We're going to be making up the difference because we have support from Senator Dolly's office and his staff that in last year's legislative session put in a legislative ask that didn't go through, but we're feeling confident we'll be able to make that up with a legislative ask. So this is truly a public-private endeavor endeavor for all of us, for the people here in Truckee. To do that. I wanted to read something to you before I go on. Resilience, strength, survival, family. Powerful words to describe those who made the difficult trek across the western plains and mountains to reach California during the 1840s. These words also describe us as a people today. The Pioneer Monument in Donner Memorial State Park honors early pioneers who struggled across the continent, who continue to inspire us today. Constructed near the Donner Party Cabin site, work on the monument began in 1901. Since then, the stone pillar and magnificent bronze statue have stood in testament to the thousands who risked all for a better life. It honors the pioneer spirit of today, yesterday, and continues to inspire us as we move forward. The Donner Project will restore the Pioneer Monument, provide a surrounding reflective seating and landscape area, and create an outdoor pavilion adjacent to the visitor center to host educational, arts, and family events. What a great amenity to the town of Truckee. I'd like to introduce again Rob Weston, because we have two very specific asks that we're asking for from the town of Truckee.
What about the video?
Oh, I am so sorry. May I please? We have a wonderful 1-minute video. I just got into my discussion, wasn't following notes. So,
Pioneer Monument stands at the gateway to California, inspiring visitors since 1918. Erected to honor the early pioneer families who made the difficult journey across the continent to reach California, the monument remains a symbol of strength and resilience. 100 years of harsh Sierra winters have taken a toll on the monument. Now is the time to honor our trailblazing past with the Donner Project. The Donner Project will restore the deteriorating Pioneer Monument, provide reflective seating in landscaped areas, and create an outdoor education pavilion for public teaching and community events. Help us create this visionary space to honor the legacy of the pioneer spirit and preserve Donner Memorial State Park for the enjoyment of our community, park visitors, and future generations.
So Heidi, thank you for bringing folks up to speed. That's a great little video. So I have the ask portion of the presentation, but the first part's pretty painless, actually. We would love to get a letter from the town council, from the mayor's office and the town council, basically supporting the project, because we can use that naturally to go out to the general public to show that you folks recognize that this is a very viable project that we're doing, and something that will actually create more of a legacy and more of an educational center, actually, for the town's youth and for people that are coming to visit the area. So a letter of support would be very tremendous, very welcomed. My other part of the ask is that when you folks look at the budget for 2020, that you would consider making a serious donation to this project. We feel that it's very viable and adds to the base of the town of Truckee in terms of extra visitation, and people are coming to see this new project that we're doing. And we're hoping that you can consider something up to maybe $50,000 even to support this project when you look at next year's budget. So thank you very much. Thank you for the consideration.
Are there any questions?
Well, thank you, Heidi and Rob. Beautiful vision. So really appreciate that. At this time, we'll open it up for council if there are any questions or comments on the presentation.
I don't have a specific question, but your enthusiasm and passion really shines through, and I see that and really appreciate it. I think that it's a valuable project, and so I'm thankful that you came tonight to enlighten us about it.
You're very welcome. And the thing I think I'm the most proud of in this process is the collaborative effort that we have support solid within California State Parks, within the state legislature, within the county. Mr. Anderson has endorsed this project within our community. And I'm looking forward to the day when we're collecting pennies for kids to take us over that final $1,000 mark.
It's perfect. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Just quick question. Hi, Heidi. Hi, Rob. Thank you very much for that presentation. That was great. I 100% agree with you with the landscaping portion. I've been out there a number of times with my daughter, and yeah, it could use some help. So just a clarifying question is, you funded the actual monument and the landscaping portion, and this project is just for the amphitheater portion?
No, so we call this the Donner Project, and there's 3 phases, but we collectively think of the money as all together, that $1.8 million. Got it. This in the state of California lens, we were able to get funding for the restoration of the monument through deferred maintenance, but that will not include any of the landscaping, what we're calling the site improvements, the landscaping or the amphitheater. So we're looking all together to have that as one. And our vision for that landscaping is to bring it back to the Truckee Meadow look. So what would it look like when the wagons came through in the 1840s?
Yeah. Oops, that's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then will that pavilion be available for like rent? Will it be available for private events if somebody wanted to get married there or anything like that? Is that an intended use, or is it strictly a historical use or educational use?
No, so the intent is to have it during visitation hours for the visitor center, just probably moving use for families, have picnics, have maybe campfire programs and those other and community talks. We have a speaker series that's inside. It would be nice to bring outside, but very much to have it available if the Rotary Club would like to have a meeting there. If somebody wants to have a birthday party there, what a great spot to have a birthday party. I don't know if I'd want to get married under the auspices of the Pioneer Monument, given the history, but to do that. But absolutely, the intent is to make it available to the public. Most likely, it would be under the realm of the special event permitting process with state parks, but yes, absolutely.
So the reason why I asked that is more if you believe that there's a nexus to visitation, which clearly there is. It's such a huge visitor draw to our region. The Truckee T-Bid would be another wonderful source and group that you might want to consider presenting this vision to, and looking for a potential donation as well.
Thank you very much. We have been lucky. I did make a presentation to T-Bid. They were able to give us a $2,500 donation, and I'm getting ready to make a second presentation in this calendar year. So I'm very, very fortunate because you're right. There's a direct nexus between economic driver and our California state parks, and this project in particular. Thank you, David.
Good luck.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering, Heidi, if you have a time frame in mind for this. What's your time frame for both raising money and then the actual construction?
Excellent. So in front of you is a packet, and so that timeline's in there. But to let you know, we were hoping to have funding for phase 1, which is the monument. We need to paint that front door first, and we were lucky enough. A lot of nudging. My staff for my birthday gave me a T-shirt that says Chief Nudger, because I do a lot of field trips to Sacramento, and so we were very successful to get that deferred maintenance funding. So look towards the 102nd anniversary of the dedication of the monument on June 6th. We're hoping to have a ribbon cutting for that portion. Now, we're in the part of our fundraising campaign where we're looking for the big chunks. We're going after the very large chunks of fund to make up the difference, and we're hoping to have all of the funding completed by 2022. For construction to be the 22-23 season. It'd be nice to have it a little earlier, but I know how government works. But we've done all the internal needs in terms of getting those notifications that this project is coming up through the state legislature, so we won't be hung up for technical difficulties if in fact when the money does arrive. So it'd be great to have a 5-year vision to have this totally functional.
Great. And as you get more donors and supporters, you'll be updating your information with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One thing I didn't bring up that's real exciting is that we have a unique opportunity that we actually have a donor wall, which is something very unusual in state parks. So those of you who've been to the Donner Visitor Center, we have a donor wall that's movable or changeable. Mm-hmm. So the bigger the donation, the bigger your name to do that. And so, but it enables us to thank publicly for a very, very long time everybody who believes in our state parks and what we're doing.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll say one thing real quick, too. You don't have to leave. You just go have a seat. Take time, do whatever you need to do. In all the changes going on in Truckee, different things happen, everything's all the world that we're living in today. It's very nice to see something to find a way to honor our heritage. It's important to me. I think it should be important to our town because it was a big part. And so seeing this as obviously it's been there for a long time, but each step going that direction, and as some of the kids who went through that third grade program, my daughter still today, it's all about the Donner Party, and I've learned a ton about it from her. So thank you for doing that, and I appreciate that.
You're welcome. And again, remember, it's not the Donner Party, because what we're really trying to shift that narrative. It's the collective history of all of us crossing the Sierra Divide and living in the Sierra Divide to do that. And so that's why Rob talked about the Pioneer Monument, because we really want to make sure collectively we shift that narrative to our sensibilities of 2019. So thank you for your comment.
Yeah, I just have maybe a couple of comments. So in terms of the two things you asked.
Okay.
Letter of support, kind of looking to the left and right. I think there's nods up here that that's something we could easily do, and we'll work with our staff to make that happen ASAP. So, and then in terms of
certainly appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then in terms of the other ask, we're getting involved with monetary. We typically discuss our budgets after the first of the year. We have a discussion of council priorities for the coming year, and out of that, we go into a budget process. So you might want to shoot us emails in early January as a reminder. So again, thank you so much for the great presentation.
No, thank you. And I just want to make sure you know it's a three-phase. To Anna answer your question, it's a three-phase project. So we're hoping the first phase we can start in 2020. And then the next phase would be maybe the landscaping in 21, 22, and as Heidi said, within 5 years have it complete so that folks can come to it. And my other comment I was going to make about the parks is the parks are the public parks. So to answer David's question, it's open to anybody, anytime. And if it's going to be a special event, the only thing is you need to contact state parks for a special event permit, which are easily available. But the parks are owned by all of us here in this room, and having that park right here in Truckee is a fantastic benefit.
Thank you again, Rob and Heidi. Really appreciate you coming here. Okay, unless there are any other questions from council, we'll open both of our presentation items up for public comment. If there's any public comment.
I'm Rory O'Farrell, Tahoe Truckee Media, and I would just like to add my voice to the mayor and the council in thanking Tom Ballister, one of the most talented and most humble people that I've had the pleasure to work with here in town. And over the last 2 years, starting with this room and now almost every other boardroom that we televise from, he has been instrumental in rewiring it, bringing it up to HD standards. Yes, helping you look better, but also fulfilling our mission of open government, free speech. And for that, on camera 4, Tom, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Rory. And again, thank you, Tom, back there. I think he's back there, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. In terms of making us look better, I think we're going to need an official makeup artist, actually. So, okay. Any other public comment? Okay, so we'll close out the public comment on the presentations and then now move on to our consent calendar tonight. We have 3 items on the consent calendar. Item 6.1, on-call land surveying consulting services with Andrag Somas. Item 6.2, claim for damages against the town of Truckee. In item 6.3, Coldstream Trails and Transit Maintenance District, Ordinance 2019-08, levying special taxes within the Town of Truckee Community Facilities District 2019-1 and second reading. So would any member of council care to have an item pulled for discussion? Any member of staff?
No.
All right. Any member of the public? All right. With that, then, we will entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I move to approve the consent calendar.
Thank you, Anna. A second?
I'll second it.
All right, thank you, Tony. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, consent calendar carries unanimously. All right, we're ready now to move on to our first discussion item of the evening, item 7.1, staff report regarding the reconfiguration of and potential reappointments to the General Plan Advisory Committee, otherwise known as GPAC. Jenna Gatto.
Thank you and good evening. So this will be pretty quick tonight. As you are aware, we have 2 current vacancies within our GPAC. So the purpose of tonight's discussion is to determine how we want to proceed with filling those. You may remember at last month's meeting, you made 2 decisions. The first was that you wanted to backfill both of the open vacancies. And what you did is you reduced the number of energy and sustainability representatives from 2 to 1, and then you retained the builder developer representative that we created last year. And then the second decision you made, again, was also appointing a 19-person GPAC rather than 20, again, because we reduced one of the GPAC member positions. So what you see down at the bottom of the screen, and you've seen this slide now a couple of different times, but for those who may not have seen it, we have 19 different folks that sit on our GPAC, and then we also have a couple of alternates that kind of come and go as needed. We've got several of you are on the GPAC. We've got a couple planning commission members. We've got folks that then represent a kind of a wide variety of different stakeholder interests within the town. And again, what we're talking about tonight are filling 2 open positions. One would be a new builder and developer representatives, and then an energy sustainability water representative. And both of these are open because we received 2 different resignations within a short amount of time. So that's what we're talking about this evening. You have, if you may recall, at last month's meeting, we came before you and asked how you would like to proceed, whether you wanted us to reach out to the folks that had applied last summer to determine whether or not they're still interested, or if you wanted to kind of reopen up the process and start again. Your initial interest at that point was to go back and reach out to the folks that applied last summer. So I've done that, and what we've got currently are 1 candidate. This would be a current planning commissioner, Jan Zabriskie. He is interested in representing the GPAC as a sustainability energy water representative, and then 2 candidates that are interested in the builder developer position. First is Andy Barr, and then the second would be Brandon Brooks. We actually did have a 3rd candidate interested, but he unfortunately had to drop out last week. He had a baby a little bit early, and I think kind of saw the writing on the wall and decided this wasn't the best undertaking. So you currently do have enough folks that are interested to fill both positions. If you don't want to do that and you do decide to go back out and reopen the position, that is something we can do. What that would really look like is we would refly the opportunity. We would then see who applies for these 2 positions, give them the questionnaire that was forwarded to everyone last summer, and then come back probably within the end of the year, I would suspect, recognizing that we'd probably want to give people about a month, and come back with a list of new potential candidates, and then you could choose to select from that point moving forward. That's all I've got. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, thanks, Jenna. That is a great photograph up there, by the way. Any questions from council? No? All right. Any public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment then and bring this back to council for...
I'm sorry, can I ask a question? Sorry.
Sure.
Just to clarify, when we talked last time and decided to fill these 2 open vacancies, was that... Are we now limited to a 19 member, or if we so desired, could we look to to project into the future and assume that maybe more people will drop out and include 3? Or what would happen? Is that too imbalance? Like, what are our options?
Well, you do have a resolution, and I neglected to include that motion in my slides. You do have a resolution before you that does acknowledge a 19-person GPAC. What you really haven't decided, formally at least, is what to do with subsequent resignations. That is something you could have us include in another resolution or in a modified resolution, and we could come back with that. We really have had fairly consistent attendance, and I would say that the 2 resignations, one was due to someone moving away from Truckee, and I'm not sure what the other one was related to, but I don't expect that it'll be a regular occurrence. Folks are generally engaged, and we have good attendance, so it may not be something we need to address, or if it comes up again, at that point we could figure it out.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we'll open this up for public comment. Seeing no public comment, we will close public comment then and bring this back to council for discussions, deliberations. Go ahead.
So Jan Zabriskie has my full support for the energy sustainability water position. And I would
In support of what Anna just said.
All right. Any other comment?
I was going to make one comment. Not opposed to Andy Barr. I totally
Well, I don't know, Andy, but I do support action.
Great. Yeah, I as well. I support
contributor
Absolutely.
to the GPAC, and we would love to see him there.
Yeah, that is a great point, kind of going back to what Jenna was saying. We have a resolution, right? Or
You do, and depending on who gets promoted this evening, we'll be filling in their names within that resolution as a final product of your decision tonight.
okay.
I'll read it.
Okay.
It's this. So I move that we rescind, is this correct, Resolution 2018-64 and adopt Resolution 2019-64, establishing a 19-person General Plan Advisory Committee. In doing so, and we also to appoint 2 new members for the open GPAC vacancies. 1 builder developer representative, Andy Barr, and 1 energy sustainability water representative, Jan Zabriskie.
Thank you, Jessica.
Is that it? Is that
You got it.
correct?
Yeah.
A second.
A second. Thank you, Dave. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, resolution carries. Congratulations, Andy and Jan, and thank you both for coming this evening. We'll look forward to seeing you at the
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I wanted to pass along our town attorney's apologies. He had a sick child at home, and his wife is out of town, and so he had to go home. So yes, we're talking here about the short-term rental ordinance update and considering making updates to that ordinance and taking ourselves through a public process and a community discussion on that issue. So just a little bit of where we are currently. The town municipal code, which we essentially inherited this part of the code from the county when we incorporated in 1993, requires residents who rent their homes or a room in their home for 30 days or less to register with the town. And they must collect and remit a 10% TOT and a 2% TBID tax from their renters and remit that to the town. The town's administrative services staff is the collecting body. I'm the tax administrator as the administrative services director. We contracted in 2015 with Host Compliance, which at that point was a startup company with really no other clients, to help us to identify who was doing short-term rentals because the online platforms were not willing to give us that data. And as you know, that's been very successful. Other than that, we don't have a lot of rules related to the short-term rentals within our town, and the council had asked us to include this as part of the work program for this year to take a look at whether we needed to add any rules or make any changes. So other local processes that had happened, the Tahoe Donner Homeowners Association went through about a year-long process with a 43-person committee or something like that, and that resulted in some what I call lifestyle rules, as well as a registration requirement and some enhanced ability to report if you thought someone was violating the rules. As you well know, and our town manager can speak to, the Mountain Housing Council debated this issue related to short-term rentals for at least a year, with many, many meetings and lots of revisions to a report that it was eventually published on the issue. That report has a lot of good data, a list of other jurisdictions and their solutions and suggestions on things to consider. Did I? Yep. Okay. And so, like I said, you all had discussed this as part of this year's work program. And as many of you know, host compliance is really the industry leader as far as monitoring and helping cities and towns monitor short-term rentals. They have over 300 cities now, and have a lot of great information about best practices surrounding ordinances for short-term rentals. And they also, the reason that we really just reached out to them is they already have all our data. And so any other consultant that we spoke to would have to go through the process of dealing with collecting data, and host doesn't have to do that because they already have it. So the process that we've have set out with in collaboration with them that we're asking you to let the contract on is to do various ways, or to use various methods to reach out to stakeholders, because obviously we have many second homeowners, and so we want to do web surveys of stakeholders, have stakeholder in-person meetings, have focus groups with different folks with different interests, whether it's property managers, whether it's homeowners, et cetera, do phone interviews where necessary to kind of fill those gaps in, have 2 public workshops where anybody and everyone would be invited, and then summarize the data that they collect, and then give us a detailed recommendation of their proposed regulatory framework that's based on the community input, and then of course have a council workshop. So we would expect that the council would be participating more than likely in the public workshops, and then of course have the formal council workshop, 1 or more if necessary. We think it's going to be about a 6-month process. We have some other public processes going on right now also, so we want to make sure that we time the meetings in such a way that enables as many folks to participate as possible, and that we can get as much input as we possibly can. I've talked about hosts' experience. They have over 300 cities, and then on here is the list of some of the cities that they provided me that they've actually gone through facilitating this process. So it's staff's recommendation that the council award a contract of not to exceed $50,000 to host compliance to carry out this public outreach and community conversation, and that if you have any other direction you want to provide now, or if you want to wait to let the process inform you, to give us any other input, we would appreciate that.
If I could add just 2 points. One, just a underscore and big thank you to all the Mountain Housing Council participants, and especially to Sana Doherty, who I see is in the audience right now, for all their hard work on the short-term rental research and analysis that went into the white paper that we all produced. While it did not result in expressly saying these are the things that all the jurisdictions, well, I mean, really the 2 counties and towns should be doing, it gave plenty of suggestions. But because of all that background data, I think it's one of the reasons we were able to have a contract that is this relatively low amount of money. It would be a lot more, I think, if they had to start over and collect data, and if host was come in. The fact that they're here, as Kim said. The second thing is that report, the Mountain Housing Council report, and literally everything that's been done on short-term rentals that we see in terms of research analysis, there's really 2 very distinctive avenues that you think about when you think of regulation. One being kind of what Kim described as lifestyle. As an old planner, I described as nuisance issues, but the issues of, just knowing, having contact person, garbage, noise, parking, crowding, those kind of things. And that's very, very important. And I know the Tahoe Donner process worked very, very heavily on that and really thought that through. And that's going to be a big help to us, too. But then there's the second one, which is, should there be any limitations, caps, restrictions, that has more to do with the question of do short-term rentals impede, influence, impact long-term rentals, and how much? If so, how much? And do they impact the real estate market? If so, how much? That is a complicated question, and then I would urge you to, if you want to dive into what we know at the moment, I would look at the Mountain Housing Council report. I think it's worth going back and reminding ourselves on that second question. Much more complicated, more controversial, I think, in many ways, but an important one, and we intend to look at both. But if you want to give us any suggestions or parameters tonight in terms of limiting the study or crafting the study or just kind of let it go, be appreciated. So thanks.
Okay. Any clarifying questions from council at this time?
Kim, thank you very much.
That they had worked with to do this exact process. And so this is a snapshot of some of the agencies that they've taken through this process. My understanding is City of Los Angeles was just completed.
Okay. Yeah, that's key. Yes.
Okay. I would add too that in our discussions with hosts, they had talked about some of the cities that they had done research with. So I think they talked about Napa and sort of lessons learned from things that they had done maybe not as well as they could have. So they've been using those as tools when they've been working with these other cities to say, here's some things that probably won't work for you that we've learned that you could do better. So they've been progressively with each city they kind of come in contact with, gotten better about kind of learning what's working and what's not.
Danielle, that's really great to hear. Thank you.
I don't know. From what I've seen in these ordinances, most of these cities allow some form of short-term rental, although I know like they have Garden Grove as a client who there's none allowed. Okay. So
so that's one end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Much.
I just have a quick question about potentially
our not to exceed amount is actually more than the contract that proposal they made to us, giving ourselves some flexibility. So I'm appreciating that. And of course we want to include Glenshire as another large homeowners association in town.
So your answer was yes, right?
So, Kim, just if we were to take this on,
it looks like a lot of gray hair. Yeah, 2 years. Danielle said 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, the host compliance probably has some examples of communities that tried to do this on their own and could take years.
I
right?
did not ask that question, honestly. I just, based on the discussions that we've had with you all through the budget process and here with you at the diocese, you know that we're kind of maxed out on a staff basis, and so we were looking for a way to do this in the time frame that you were requesting that was realistic with the staff time.
Right. Okay.
Which may drive additional regulation.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Any other? All right. At this point, we will open this item up for public comment. And if you could please state your name, and you will have 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you. Jennifer Jennings, again, board member for Tahoe Donner, and I am speaking just on my own here. I had the pleasure today of attending the Placer County Board of Supervisors meeting. They started their process in July. Today, the board discussed a proposed ordinance. They intend to publish it on November 5th, and with potential adoption for November 19th to be effective January 1st. I think they did a tremendous job in looking at all the options. They have done all the work. One benefit to being late to the game for the town of Truckee is that you have matrices that are available from Placer County and other jurisdictions that talk about the range of options. This is not rocket science. I think that with an amount of money that the town of Truckee has gained from having short-term rentals, that you should be able to hire a staff person who will come at it from a public perspective. I consider the concept of having host compliance, which is a company that depends on short-term rentals, conduct the public workshop to be rather bizarre. Frankly, I've never heard of it before. In any public activity that I've been involved in where there's controversy, you have a neutral mediator, and I do not think that host compliance would be seen as a neutral mediator. And again, I do think that the staff report for the Placer County was great. They're doing it quickly. They involve the public. They're doing it expeditiously, and I would urge you to go that alternative. I think it's a high enough priority, and again, I think it sends a wrong message to contract it out, and it just looks like it's more of a prospect of delay and not a neutral review of this very controversial issue within our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Hi, Shauna Doherty with Mountain Housing Council. With all due respect, sorry, I just have a little bit of a different opinion. So I was involved with leading the development of the white paper last year, and it was absolutely highly controversial just internally with the team. Knowing that we had to be very careful about how we presented that report, we spent a lot of time in the framing. So I would urge you two things is really re-look at that report and look at the framing. It's really, really important. So Placer County is doing a great job. They're really just focusing on nuisance. So my question is, what's the scope? So are we asking host compliance to look at both nuisance and potentially unlocking homes for locals housing? Or are we just focused on nuisance? So just again, to go back to that framing that we all worked really hard, because people come with a lot of emotions around short-term rentals, and to be able to say, put those emotions in, is it because you're annoyed by trash, noise, the change in your neighborhood, or are you truly stressed out because the house you lived in was just taken back by the landlord so they could short-term rental it? So just really using that framing that we worked really hard to create to communicate about what you're doing. I actually, instead of writing the white paper myself, I tried to actually hire host compliance. So all the research I did, I do find them, Ulrich, who started the company, to be extremely knowledgeable, extremely credible as far as being able to, yes, they are making their money from working with jurisdictions to get in the game of compliance, but they're also in the business of data collection. And they are keeping tabs. If you go to their website, they are also posting all of the kind of research that shows the various opinions of how different cities are tackling it. I think they're pretty good at coming in as the experts. I really do like the idea of partnering potentially with a local, maybe it's Mountain Housing Council or some other local entity to help with that sort of framing things. But they are really experts in this topic. One of the things I wanted to add to the potential scope, if you are to move forward with them, is what we realized is the data so I worked a lot with Kim and the staff, and I really appreciate all the data that you allowed us access to do that short-term rental report. What we noticed is there's just so much more data that we could be collecting. So yes, we're going to be going out and asking the community for their feedback, but let's also go ask, when we have an expert, to go in and look at our own internal systems. And is there more data we could collect?
Thank you, Shauna. Any other public comment?
Again, I'm not quite sure the ins and outs with host compliance. All I do know is that I spent 1.5 years on the Tahoe Donner Committee, so I consider myself having a little bit of experience. Wasn't a pretty process, and my understanding, and anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, host compliance refused to share data with us in order to get some of our enforcement things in place, I believe. So that kind of concerns me. And also, I'm wondering of Placer County today in what they did. It's like, wow, they really accomplished something on their own, pretty impressive. And also, I'm stating here that whatever does come up, I want to volunteer to be in on it because I see both sides of this problem. My life has been negatively impacted by short-term rentals and something has to be done. And I have a child who wants to live in Truckee, works for the town of Truckee, and says his next move is going to have to be to Reno because short-term rentals have taken over. So I'm here to volunteer on whichever way you decide to go. Thank you.
Council for deliberations. Who would like to start?
Want me to start? Sure. I like starting on these things. So I'm going to start by and we are constantly looking to balance priorities, and we're constantly looking for the best ways to move so many of these things that the community brings to us forward. And this was, at least today and right now, this to me is our best opportunity for moving something like this forward in an efficient way, and also in a timely way that gets us to some of the other moving parts that we have going on. So that's sort of my broad stroke. A couple of things that I want to mention, at least in my opinion and my goals, are I'm looking at this in a lot of different ways. It is not an end-all be-all housing solution. If it ends up assisting in all of the housing issues that we talk about, I'll be super happy about that, but I'm not looking at this as sort of the solution. This is just one potential thing we can do to try to create certainty out there. I do believe we should be looking at both nuisance, land use issues, as well as potential community limits. I'm not really in favor, at least at this point, in talking about individual neighborhood or HOA or subdivision specific limits. I think we need to look at this as a community as a whole. That seems to make more sense to me. I do really like the idea of potentially getting some local help if we need it. I know we have a not to exceed with it being slightly over the estimate that we got from host compliance, and I do think we have a lot of local expert facilitators in addition to expertise that have been working on this project for a long time that very well could help us as we need additional bodies on the ground and to really help host compliance be successful in our very passionate community, of which I think we are definitely, let's make no mistake about this. We are putting ourselves out there. We will have a packed room when this comes back before us in a few months. And we want to be able to channel that passion into constructive, feedback and really be able to make it into a policy that we believe reflects our town's values. I'd like to come out straight out and say, I hope we don't, proceed with a complete ban. I don't believe that's our goal. But I'll at least say that right now, that we're not looking to ban in any way short-term rentals. And we also at least want to make sure that we don't restrict or change the existing ability for full-time homeowners who are using an additional room to help pay their mortgage. We've heard this a number of times as well. I believe, at least in the Mountain Housing Council white paper, it said something like 3%, or I was trying to look it up and I couldn't quite find it, but there was a small percentage that do full-time live here, are considered full-time homeowners, putting on the table right now that we're not really looking to restrict their ability to effectively pay their mortgage, as long as they are, their intent is that of being here full-time and just renting out a room to help pay their mortgage. Other than that, the research I want to see, and I don't even know if it's out there yet, is really, what is a good mix? What's a good mix of short-term renters to, how many actual units we have? If that kind of data exists, I think that'd be really interesting if any community has sort of gone down that path yet. And I think those were all my bullet points. And I'd like to see maybe an extra workshop or two, depending if we need it. But certainly a specific workshop in, at the very least, the major HOAs in town. And other than that, I will stop. Thank you.
I have a little bit less to say, but along the same lines. I agree. I think that it's important for us to be respectful of our limited town resources, and having this company who really does have all of the data already available is going to maximize efficiency as far as when we're gathering all the information for them to bring back to us. So, and like you said, Dave, I see host compliance as being neutral. They really, and as far as I'm aware, they're going to be a disinterested third party, because whatever we end up doing, or however we end up deciding is the best path for our community, isn't going to have an impact on their bottom line. We just don't want to be one of their tools for how they could do it better in the future. We want to be one of their success stories. And I think it's important really to look at the whole combination, the whole piece of nuisance plus what the community can handle and how we can incentivize the opening up or the unlocking of the long-term rentals and how everything, it's all so interconnected, and really having a company who's focused solely on that is what I see as the most effective way to move forward in a timely manner, which we have decided is something that we want to do. And so I think it's worth it to move ahead and have host compliance get started.
So I think where I stand and how I feel about this, obviously, I'm a big proponent of using resources that have some expertise whenever you can. I don't believe a town is really good at what the town does, but as we venture into new areas, using organizations to help us do it right, or at least start addressing issues correctly, is really important. That's not even talking about our priorities and our time availability as being an issue. Cost-wise, I think it's been pretty clear to hire someone and bring someone on is just not feasible. It's going to be well over twice the asked budget on that. So that makes sense to me. As far as kind of understanding or what short-term rentals and how that works, obviously I see it as a double-edged sword. It's been here forever. It's been here as part of what this community is built on as far as the recreational side. That's not new. It's just being used more, using with the tools that are out there now in today's world. So I'm reluctant to be, I don't want to ban it. I don't want that to be an idea at all. I think it's going to be part of our economy no matter what, and we just have to accept that's what this place is. I think the other part is as we find ways to help deal with it better with the town and find ordinances or however it works out in the process, our expectations have to be kind of somewhat real. I don't really know that we're going to unlock a whole bunch of homes for long-term rentals. A lot of those people are using the short-term rental as a way to help maybe get some money back, pay for the mortgage, help fund whatever they're funding. But if they lost that ability, the reality is they may just lock it down for themselves only, and then house isn't available anyways. And then we lose visitors. And we lose visitors, now we're affecting our economy. So we have to be very careful what we are wishing for and what we're aiming for, because we may lose other things along the way that make this little town turn. So that's kind of I think where I feel about the whole thing. As far as making sure, I think I agree with what everyone else has said already, but making sure stakeholders, as a study needs to be broad, study needs to be deep. It's a very important issue. It can't just be asking a few people. It can't be just a few groups. It's making sure the real stakeholders, the real people who are involved, and definitely the people who are most impacted by it financially also have to be included in the conversation. I think that's about pretty much what I have to say. But as it develops, I would say, I think one of the things you guys are looking for from staff is what's the guidelines we as town council want to put on it and where we want to go. Going back to what I said about the study, I don't want to put too many limitations on a study because I think we need to see the whole thing. We need to get the data, and then we can start making some real good decisions. So there you go.
Okay, I think my esteemed colleagues have summarized this quite well. I would only add that one of the main purposes of discussing it tonight is to make sure that the community is aware of our intent to do so. Marlis, thank you so much for your volunteer efforts that you've already put forth on this matter. I'm very encouraged that you're going to continue. Please invite your friends, your coworkers, anybody else you know. Please make sure that those voices are getting to these meetings and being heard and doing the online survey. That is what we need. So without belaboring anything else, let's move forward and get that information so we can make good decisions.
Yeah, I'm with you, Anna, and I think with everyone else up here. Just a couple of thoughts, and I do as well want to thank Jennifer, Shauna, and Marlis for your comments. This really gets at sort of a classic tension in our community, the debate or tension between property rights and the rights of others to enjoy their property as well, but without nuisance and all of the things that go along with STRs. I was not particularly looking at this work scope from host compliance as fixed in terms of only analyzing one issue. I think it's wide open. At least that's my read, and I certainly don't want to come to this with any preconceived notions. I think that let's let this process sort of play out. I certainly appreciate the fact that there is going to be a lot of robust community engagement, workshops, and so forth. So I think that's key. Last week, along with several others, had the opportunity at the League of California Cities conference to actually hear from host compliance, and they gave a very informative overview of what they do. I think the fact that they have worked with some large cities, smaller cities on this very issue, certainly speaks well to their background and their experience. And I, for one, would prefer to have that professional guidance as we tackle a very complex issue. So So with that, I think at this point this is a recommendation, correct? It's not a resolution, but
Yes, it's a recommendation.
Okay. Okay. Very good. So I think there's consensus here to move forward, but if we need a vote on that.
I think you can do it without our permission.
Well, technically the $50,000.
Okay, it's
within Jeff's, but we were asking that you actually.
Mike.
I'm sorry. Thank you. It's technically within Jeff's ability to approve, but we were recommending that you go ahead and award the contract because this is such a big community issue. We really wanted to make sure that, as Councilmember Klövstad said, that the community knows that we're doing this.
Right. Okay.
That's why we brought it to you for a motion, for action.
Okay. All right. So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
And maybe we could even put out a press release when we're done even.
We could.
That would be awesome. Yeah. I will make a motion that we award a contract in the amount not to exceed $50,000 to host compliance for consulting and facilitation services in regards to short-term rentals, ordinance outreach, and policy development, along with all of the other direction that we provided in our individual comments.
Thank you, Dave. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jessica. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Recommendation carries. Thank you, Kim.
No, it's good.
Got it all.
I think that helped.
You're applauding. Thank you. Thank you, Marlis. Thank you again for coming out. All right. With that, we are ready to move on to our council reports. And this evening, we're going to start with Councilmember Commendatore.
Well, the last couple of weeks have been, see what happened. Not much happened, actually. Did a few kind of just discussing and going through topics and issues with town staff and continuing to get my own feet firmly planted on the ground, how I am dealing with the issues and making sure that I'm making the best, not my best decisions, but a positive impact to this group of five and to the town of Truckee. So it's kind of all summed up with that. That's what I did.
Councilmember Klövstad.
Well, I had 3 glorious vacation days, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday in Long Beach with Mayor Tierman and Kim Zurich and Jeff Lux at the League of California Cities Conference, where we enjoyed the Beacon Award ceremony, which was really quite fun, and got 5 separate awards along with our silver. I also very much so enjoyed a presentation by our very own Kim Zurich. It was well done and well attended, so thank you for doing that. I also, we all enjoyed our team building the week before. I think we look forward to having more time in January because we have a lot more to still talk about and figure out. And then I had the honor of providing the welcoming address to the Seroptimus regional meeting that was held here in Truckee. This is all of Northern and Central California, basically, and they had about 60 attendees, which was very impressive and very nice crowd.
Thank you, Anna. Councilmember Abrams.
I did the team building last week with everyone, I'm looking forward to January and getting a little bit more time on the books to discuss what our priorities are going to be.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Pallaby.
I will give you mine because I missed last council meetings, but back 3 and 4 weeks ago, I went to the Hotel Avery site visit and met with a couple TBID members, and then moving into the most recent 2-week period, had a nice breakfast with one of Congressman McClintock's local staffers, and that went quite well, and I believe did you already have your meeting with her? Or, oh, you did, good. So I know Jeff and Dan and Rob also had an opportunity to meet with her as well and let her know kind of what our priorities are moving forward and see if we get anywhere on that. Attended the team building, attended an internal TBID meeting where we kind of talked about some updates there, and you guys are well apprised of that now. And then attended the Mountain Town Planners, I'm messing up the name of it, conference in South Lake last week. I was there for 2 days. It was a 3-day conference. The first day was an elected officials conference where about 25 of elected officials from across mountain communities across the West and Canada got to talk about a lot of really interesting structural issues and just how we function, but also sort of the more public issues that face us, and then spent the day going to a lot of different sessions with Joanne Marquetta being the keynote speaker that opened that. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Dave. As with all of you, Town Council mini team building retreat, almost 2 weeks ago now, October 10. Very next day, the library working group. This is a group that was specifically focused on what can be done to the current library to improve it, to make it better while we await a new library. So there is some funding for that. So that group's been meeting on a fairly regular basis, a good momentum there. October 16th through the 18th in Long Beach, along with Anna, Kim, and Jeff, the League of California Cities Conference. I agree, Anna, terrific to get all of those Beacon Awards, and I hope we can get a press release out about that. I think that's definitely worth. You think about underway. Great, excellent. Your photo. Oh, that's right. You need a quote. Okay. All right, we'll get you a quote. And then this past weekend, Saturday, we hosted the mayor and 2 council members. They call them councillors in Canada. 2 councillors from the town of Canmore, who is considering forging a sister city relationship with the town of Truckee. So more on that to come, hopefully before the end of the year. Great visit. Thank you, Jeff, for meeting us out there. Hillary did a fabulous job helping to orchestrate and organize that. And they were super impressed with the town of Truckee and found a lot of commonality between our 2 communities. So more to come. And then just yesterday, the Sister City Committee met. We have a monthly meeting, and we met yesterday to kind of talk about that. We still have some outreach as well to a couple of other cities, but certainly nothing as far as we've gone with Canmore. So with that, we are going to adjourn until our next regular council meeting on November 12th. So the day after Veterans Day. And Veterans Day, we have the town sponsors a terrific ceremony downtown in front of the Eagle statue. So if you can make that, that's a Monday, 11 a.m., right? Okay. All right. Thank you.